Welcome to the Tim Castle Live Show, where we meet courageous people doing inspirational things around the world. John Sills, I've been looking forward to this conversation with you for a number of weeks since I saw you come to Singapore and I saw your book. You are managing partner of the foundation, which is customer-led growth consultancy. Your first book, The Human Experience, has won Leadership Book of the Year, and you're on the board of trustees for Young Enterprise UK. You started your career on a market stall in Essex. You've had a flourishing career at HSBC for 12 years, and now you're on the Tim Castle Show talking about customer experience. I mean, it can't get any better than that, can it, John?
It's the peak. It's the peak. This is what it's all been working towards. Yeah.
Great,
I'm happy with that.
great to have you here.
Yeah. But it is so. Like, I know, just to say it, I know we joke about it, but it's great. It's really nice when anyone reaches out and says, I'd like to talk to you, I'd like to chat to you about stuff. Like, I think it is a great thing that if 25 years ago, or maybe slightly longer now, someone had said to me, in the future, someone from the other side of the world wants to get in touch and hear your views, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
No, brilliant. I agree, and I think that's something that I've lent into. When you're an author and you put your work out there, it can be quite vulnerable at first, and then like there's this
Yeah.
surprise element of it where you're just people want to talk to you, and then you realize we have a stance and a point on it, and it's quite fun, and I like that. So, uh,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
kindred
Yeah. Yeah.
spirits there, John. So a lot
Yeah.
of your work has focused on like at HSBC. You ended in head of customer innovation and perception. That's a
Yeah.
very, I
Yeah.
mean, that's an interesting title in itself. Like, head of innovation, I get, but the perception piece is very,
Yeah, I kind of got to make up my own job out of my own job title, which is why it was so kind of elongated. Yeah, the idea behind it was like I've been doing a lot of work. I've been in the bank for quite a while, and I started to find that I really loved understanding how people thought, how people worked. It was around the time that behavioral science was really kicking off.
mm,
With respect to all of the psychologists that have been working on it since the 70s, but when Thinking Fast and Slow was out, when
right.
Rory Sutherland started kind of talking about it, when you started to get this real kind of move within marketing and business to use behavioral science. And so I've been doing a lot of work in experience and innovation, and it seemed to me it all kind of came back to perception, actually, customers' perception of their behaviors, our perception of customers' behaviors, the way people behave. Understanding behavior was more interesting to me than understanding customer service or customer experience. So yeah, when I got to make up my own job and job title, I kind of wanted to do the innovation side, but I thought really a big part of this is about how we perceive customers and how they perceive us. So I thought I'd add perception on the end of it, and it gave me an interesting job title. So
I
I was
love
quite
it.
happy with that.
It's a differentiator. It stood out. I was like, yeah, no, that's a cool title, and it's not one you see all over the place. So well done for that.
Yeah,
So you were part of the
yeah,
team. You were designing those propositions, the strategy you went through from bank manager in the global financial crisis all the way through to then looking at the global strategy and getting in with customers. But what is it as a starting point that companies are missing when it comes to that customer experience? Like what are they not getting about customer experience?
yeah. Well, I mean, where to start? I mean, I think it's interesting first of all to talk about kind of people rather than the companies.
Mm,
Because we often talk about the organizations and what they're missing, but this is all about individuals in organizations, and so much of it is about how we as individuals work individually and collectively that kind of creates these habits and behaviors that we end up um you know believing to be true or believing to be the right way. I mean, you'll know it yourself, Tim, but we have all these funny behaviors when you open up your laptop in the morning or you walk into the office. You start speaking and writing in a different way to what you might have done 10 minutes before. Like you're WhatsApping your friends in one particular style, and all of a sudden you start sending emails with this like, dear so and so, I hope this email finds you well. And it's like, what is this language we start to use? But we all do it. And so what you're really seeing in organizations at the moment, and have done for quite a while, is this kind of groupthink comes in.
mm,
That means we work on our design for customers, we work on our customer experience in a way that kind of logically makes sense. But when you unpick it, it doesn't really make that much sense. So one of the big things, to answer your question more directly, one of the big things is how we actually understand customers, in terms of the experience they provide. And at the moment, one of the myths I talk about in the book is this myth of customer feedback, this kind of epidemic of feedback requests that we live in at the moment.
yeah.
You can't have any kind of experience without immediately being asked, what is it that you really think about that experience or that service? And it all logically makes sense. You want to know what matters to your customers, so you go and ask them. But the problem is all of this data coming in is all at like the thin end of the wedge. You know, if you imagine
Hmm.
your customer's life as this wedge shape, and at one end, all the things that really matter to them, their real world, real life, hopes, dreams, ambitions, friends, family, challenges they've got, you know, the services they use to help them. At the very thin end of the wedge is you and your organization, very small part of their overall life. But all of this feedback coming in is about the thin end of the wedge. It's about the business. What do you think about us? What do you think about our service? What do you think about our product? Would you recommend us? And the problem is that convinces leaders they're close to what matters to their customers, whereas in truth, they're only really close to their customers' opinions of their business. And it's a very subtle but a very significant difference as to whether you really understand your customers. And so that's why when you look at organizations overall, the thing they're missing is this real kind of emotional connection and understanding with what really matters to their customers. And one of the things that's driven by is all of these surveys that convince them they're close to what matters to customers, but they're really quite far away.
Wow, that's huge. And if people grab that, like if you're listening to this, it's basically saying there's an influx of data, if I've got this right. There's an abundance of data, but what we're really getting is the opinion of how the customer potentially perceives your company. But that doesn't really matter because it's not actually how they engage or they buy or what their actual life is like, what they even have ambitions to do. Like I know
Yeah.
from your experience, you were very big on getting out of the office and getting into the field. Like, can we talk a bit about like what would be the first step to a leader that, yeah, cool, I'm leading a business. I've got all of these tools. I've got all of these surveys going out. Yes, I'm getting all these responses. But what do we do next?
Yeah.
What do we not do
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
it happen?
Yeah. It's exactly it. There's kind of two or three things at play here. So just in terms of like what the problem is. So one of the things is you've got all this data coming in, and it's all about the business rather than the person. That does matter. Like it does
Mhm.
matter that you understand the experience your customers are having, but really you should be able to get most of that from the data that's already generated by their behavior rather than needing to ask them. There's another problem though, which is the way the data is presented. You know, it's often presented to boardrooms, boards in boardrooms, and it's kind of on PowerPoint or PDF. It's very dry. You know, it's very graph heavy. And the problem with that is that you know, if there's an inconvenient truth in there, if there's something that leaders don't like, they'd rather question the methodology than accept the inconvenient truth because
Mhm.
they're distant from what happened. So it's easy to go, well, is that the right sample size? Maybe we asked it on the wrong day. Maybe that was driven by some other thing, you know, or they're really presented with averages rather than actuals. So again, you hear that, you know, your average satisfaction is 70%, and you might go, yeah, that's okay. But that hides the 10% of people that really hate you because they've had an awful experience. And it
Mhm.
hides the 10% of people that really love you. And they're the people you want to understand because you want to repeat the experience that they've had. So this focus on actuals again kind of gives an experience no one's really having. So there's a few things that are a problem there. And you're right, you know, the number one thing we recommend doing, and I recommend doing first of all, is customer immersion. Like get out of the office and go to see your customers where they are. You know, go to visit their houses, you know, go shopping with them, go and spend time with them, go and watch them using your product. There's a couple of reasons for doing this. Now, this could be quite a long answer, so I might pause and then we can carry on. But you know, you need to get out there to experience things firsthand because people lie. They don't realize they lie, but they do. If I ask you now to describe yourself, you'll tell me your version of yourself that you want to believe to be true. You know, I'll just tell you a quick story if that's all right. Where
Yeah, go
I
for it.
worked with a big food manufacturer a few years ago, and we were working on the future of ready meals. You know, the future of convenience food. And so to do this, we went kind of spent time with real people. So we went and had dinner with people in their homes, and then we went shopping with them to see what their shopping habits were. And I went to interview one lady, and she was kind of in her 40s, super fit and healthy, yoga instructor, you know, kind of body is a temple kind of person. Said, look, I never cook anything that isn't from scratch. I never use any kind of ready-made or ready prepared food. And in her house, it kind of checked out. Like she had loads of ingredients and loads of recipe books and kind of made sense. Anyway, about an hour later, so we had dinner. That was great. About an hour later, we went to Waitrose, went to one of the supermarkets here in the UK,
You
going
had
up
dinner
and
in her
down the
house.
aisles.
You had
Had
dinner.
dinner in her house.
Yep.
So went to her house, watched her make dinner, chatted to her while she was making dinner to see what ingredients she used. Had dinner with her, talked about her food habits. Then an hour later, you know, it was a great meal. An hour later, went off to the supermarket to go up and down the aisles. And we get to the ready-made food aisle, and I think, well, we're going to fly past here. But she picks up like a ready chopped red onion and throws that in the trolley. And then she picks up a ready made mashed potato, throws that in the trolley. And I kind of said, well, what's that about? Because you said you didn't buy this kind of food. And she was like, well, I'm really busy. Like, I haven't got time to peel and chop vegetables. Anyway, we carry on. And we get to the end of the supermarket where all the good stuff is, the alcohol and the confectionery. And again, I thought, well, we're not going to get anything from here because body is a temple. But no, she swept in like armfuls of chocolate and prosecco and wine, like supermarket sweep, like flying over the edge of the trolley. And I said to her, what's that about? And she went, oh, well, this is for girls' night on a Friday night. It doesn't count. And what I've always loved about that is that when we sat down and spoke, she didn't think she was lying to me. She's just telling me her version of herself that she believes to be true. But that Friday night when she's hanging out with her friends, that's her not being her. That's her taking a break from being who she is. And so she's never going to tell me that. You can only see that by observing it. And that's why it's so important for leaders to go out, observe things firsthand, and see how people use their product, but also remember what it's like to not know. Remember what it's like to not have the knowledge of your product. It gives you those anecdotes, those stories, and all of that creates an emotional connection. And that emotional connection is what you need to kind of give you the conviction to get into action, because you're not going to do that from a PowerPoint or a PDF or a graph.
That's massive. Yeah. So taking out the boardroom, taking out of those PDFs and those standardized ways of just presenting the story. But the thing that's interesting is you say she has a perception of herself, which isn't necessarily the truth. And the company has a perception of themselves based on the data that from the perception of the person. So everyone's got perceptions that aren't necessarily speaking to
Yeah.
each other. And the only way to get that is to start by a deep immersion into that lifestyle, that buyer behavior. But like to look at it almost like as a fly on the wall, like it's so.
Yeah.
If that gets us to understand, like I come from a marketing and ad tech background, so I see a lot of. It blows my mind the amount of money that's invested to acquire customers. Yet there's a
Mm.
huge disconnect. Like we spend all this time on all these different technologies to acquire and to make it basically
Yeah.
make that acquisition as efficient as possible, make the ROI go as far as possible. And then you get into the organization as a customer, and then the experience can be horrendous. Like you said, the extremities are where you kind of get those pain points or those amazing things you want to replicate. Like I'm going through it with a bank. I won't mention which one right now, but like
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
had to call, being in Singapore, I have a bank account in Australia, and I've had to call that bank account up because they've emailed me and said, you need to fill out these documents to tell us who you are for KYC. Fine, done it. Oh no, you
Yeah.
need to call us because we need to verify something. So they close the accounts. They're like inactive. So I'm like, that's a problem
Right.
because I would like to put my money into those accounts. Second thing is
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to call you from Singapore, get on a I spent an hour and a half, an hour yesterday, and they said, yeah, no, we'll call you back. I'm like, the queue's really long, we'll call you back.
Yeah.
Didn't call. And then 35 minutes today to get through to someone to basically verify the information that I already sent them to then go, oh no, it's not
Yeah.
even done
Yeah.
yet. It's like, oh no, I'm just the middleman. Now I pass it up the chain to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
I have no other visibility into, and I'm like, so that to me
Yeah.
is and it seems to be banks at the moment, but in my experience, that is one of the worst customer experiences. So I've already got another bank that I could use and I'm moving all my funds there, but it's like your process has caused me to go,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose me, but you paid so much money to get me as a customer.
Do you know, it's more than that, Tim. Because this is happening everywhere. Every organization right now, this is happening. And so in part of the book, I talk about the myth of return on investment. And this is exactly the point. The biggest challenge I hear in organizations, people come to me working customer experience or propositions or innovation, and they say, like, how do we get this signed off? Like, how do we get organizations, my team, my CFO, to sign off, on these customer experience projects? And the myth is that you need to try and prove the business case for kind of how a good customer experience is going to make you money. Right. And that's what that conversation would have been in the bank. Well, we could make this KYC process easier and simpler. And of course, that being an ex-banker, I know there's reasons why KYC needs to be, really done, vigorously. But there's an element of thinking, well, actually, that's not going to make us any money by making it any quicker. So, why don't we don't need to improve it. But the reality is bad customer experience is really expensive to provide. Like the number one reason for improving your customer experiences, and it makes you a more efficient and more cost-effective organization. It's actually nothing to do with whether it makes your customers happier. So to your point, customers will be happier and stay longer and buy more. Absolutely, that will absolutely happen. That's not the number one reason to do it. So I for my 40th birthday a couple of years ago. Remarkably, it looks like about 15 years ago, but a couple of years ago, I went to York for a weekend with 10 friends, and we stayed in a Premier Inn. And obviously, I know it's not a great way to spend a 40th birthday in a Premier Inn, but anyway, we went up there. We were going to watch some football. I had a group of us,
Is that the
and we
Lenny
got
Henry?
to
Lenny Henry ads.
Lenny Henry
Back in
brand. That's
yeah.
it. The
Yes.
purple, yeah, purple Lenny Henry brand. So yeah, depending how familiar your listeners are with it, but it's kind of a kind of standard hotel brand. Not very expensive, not the cheapest, but pretty reliable. So we got there 7:30 on the Saturday night, and the receptionist said, "Welcome, thanks for coming here. Hotel was closed. We've run out of water. Like, there's no water coming into the building, so we can't open. Really sorry about that." Now that's not great to hear when there's 10 of you that's just arrived 2.5 hours from home, for a night out. So she said, "Look, you got two options. You can either take a refund and try and find somewhere else to stay at like late notice, or we can put you up in another hotel 5-6 miles away." That's not a good option because we want to be in and out of town. So we said, "Look, we'll take the money." And we spent another hour trying to book somewhere. We found a really even more unglamorous hotel down the road, and we stayed there. Now that new hotel cost us £77 more, and there was 10 of us, so £7 each was what it cost. So the next day, got home, emailed Premier Inn and just said, "Just so you know, these things happen. I get that. The new hotel was £77 more. Great if you could refund us that." And I thought, that's an open and shut case. They're just going to give me the money. They didn't agree. So they replied and said, "Well, no, we offered you a refund and you chose to stay with a competitor, so we're not giving you that money." And over the next 3 months, it took about 10 or 15 emails, multiple phone calls. I wrote a letter to the CEO, which I'm quite good at doing given what I do. They ended up offering me like a voucher for a restaurant 15 miles away. And then eventually, after 3 months of all of this activity, they wrote me a check for £77 to split amongst my friends. And on the email that they sent when they said they were going to send the check, they said, "We do hope this goes some way to restoring your faith in Premier Inn." And of course, it's done the complete opposite. Because now I think if I ever have any problems with Premier Inn, who I'm clearly naming quite freely, I've just realised, if I ever have any problems with them,
Yes.
well, I've written an article about it. They know about it. Then I'm not going to trust them. I'm not going to trust them because it's taken so long to put it right. If they just gone, "Yeah, hands up, really sorry about that, give me the money back," I'm going to trust them. But more importantly, how much money has it cost them to deal with my complaint in that 3 months? All those phone calls, all those letters, all those emails, the processing of the check, frankly, is probably nearly as much as the check.
Mm.
And you see this all the time, that lack of efficiency, the amount of time that's gone in to dealing with your problem with that bank will be so expensive for the organization because they're not looking at it in terms of would it save us money? They're looking at it in terms of would it make us money? And that fundamental mindset shift is what's needed in organizations to realize that doing things in a more efficient way is going to save them money. And the byproduct is your customers will love you more. And for me, that's a pretty, great reason to be kind of making those improvements.
I love that you did that. I love that you went to the CEO. You went to the top and got around those regulations, or you got around the kind of jargon and the speed, the obvious answers that they're going to say, just like pushback of like, and
Yeah,
obviously, if I think if any company is or person is in a position where they're saying, "Hang on, you've gone to a competitor, you chose to do that," not understanding the context, they understand the context humanly, and we'll get to this. This is why your book
yeah,
is so great. Humanly, they're going, "Yeah, I get this bloke's just gone down the road. We forced him to change plans. He's asking for £7 per person. That makes total sense."
yeah.
But then the company policy would be like, "Oh no, funding a competitor? No, no, no."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. And even then it doesn't make sense because the money's already gone to the competitor. Like that's done. Like
right.
that's done with. Like that money's not coming back. So
But the
it's
best,
just about me as their customer. A business traveler, travel around a lot, stay in their hotels a lot. Like that, and you're exactly right, Tim. It's that. So in the book, I talk about how organisations at the moment, like, the main premise of the book is this. We've spent all the last 20 years kind of perfecting this functional experience, doing more things, more ways, more quickly, more cheaply than ever before. But we've done that at the expense of the emotional experience, the human experience. And what that means is organizations have ended up being full of humans that aren't allowed to act in a human way. They feel restricted by process and procedure. And exactly as you say, there's that person in that office in Premier in headquarters that kind of instinctively deep down would know that the right thing to do is just give me the money. But either they know and they feel like they're not allowed to, or more likely they've become so trained and kind of blind to the real situation that they just process in their thinking is just becoming automatic because the culture of the organization has made them think in that way. Whereas if you went out and took them to the pub that night and just talked about this situation, they'd go, well, yeah, of course I'm going to give the refund. But this
Yeah.
kind of blinker comes down, this inside out thinking comes into play.
Like what you said at the beginning of this conversation, when we go into work or we go into that email mode, we turn on that kind of email speak, and then suddenly we're not the person that we normally are. We're not the human that we normally are. Would your advice then, in your capacity in the foundation, or given the fantastic book that you've written, The Human Experience, would your advice then be to Premier Inn to have given that up front and to maybe gave you 100 quid and gone, look, we messed up. Here's 100 quid extra up front. So they then retain you as a customer, yet make your time in. Like, is that what you advise? Would that be, or would it be deeper than that? Like, is
Yeah.
there something else that I'm missing that goes beyond that? Because
No, no. Well, you're not missing anything in terms of what I'd be recommending they do. I mean, the deeper point here is all about certainty. So, at the heart of nearly every great customer experience is certainty, creating certainty for your customers, certainty in the quality of your product or your service, certainty in terms of what's going to be happening when. I wrote an article this morning about speed and about the myth of speed and how we kind of constantly talk about customers want things quicker and quicker and quicker. It's not necessarily true. Like when I was at HSBC, did a big project looking at the way we handle complaints all the way around the world, 20 different markets. And all of those markets had a KPI for how quickly you acknowledge the complaint. And all of them had a KPI for how quickly you resolve the complaint. But when you went to speak to customers, they kind of said, look, within reason, we don't mind how long it takes to resolve the complaint, as long as I feel you're looking at it properly. And I'm kind of happy with the response and that you keep me up to date. Like that was the crucial thing. So, what the bank were doing were like rushing to get these complaints resolved. And then their reopen rate was 33%. So a third of all complaints that they handled were then reopened because the customer wasn't happy. Rather than taking a bit longer, giving customers the certainty every couple of days of just getting in touch saying, we're still looking at it. This is where we're up to at the moment. You can take longer to deal with the complaints. That's better for the organization and you can give a better outcome. So you're right, in the Premier Inn situation, what I want is certainty. Things happen. I get there, they've got no water, it's out of their control. Okay. If they say to them, we're really the ideal would be they help me find somewhere else to stay. But I get they've got hundreds of customers they're trying to move around. So them saying, look, if you can find somewhere else, we'll cover the difference. Fine, brilliant. Not a problem. Obviously, if I take the Mickey and book like the Ritz and it's thousands of pounds, that's different. But within reason, do it. And then didn't do it. If I email them the next day, if they come back and go, yeah, absolutely 77 quid, no worries. Any concern I had about the problem with Premier Inn disappears. I kind of even forget. It's not even a story. Ordered the thing about there was no water. Okay, didn't matter. And the next time I book with Premier Inn, I'm going to book with them because I know if something goes wrong, they've got my back. So I've got certainty. All about the certainty that you create. And as I say, my problem with them now is I kind of think if something goes wrong, they're going to shaft me. So now they're not my first choice, whereas they would have been before because I'm not now sure about how they're gonna handle it. You need to look at different things in different ways. So the advice we would give our clients would be maybe different depending on different situations. But what would be true is unless you're a theme park where you're taking away certainty to create the fun, then certainty is at the heart of your experience, and that's really what you're trying to deliver at every possible point.
that's awesome. Yeah, you're right. Like there's such it's that, but it goes back to that behavioral piece that you opened with, the fact that this is all about the psychology and the behavior of people and people to people. And that's the same thing with the bank situation. Like the reason I'm in this position is actually because it probably doesn't affect that many people because not many international customers, probably the Australian population base can go on the app and just do whatever they need to do when it's done, but it
Yeah,
affects however many customers are international and they don't need
yeah,
to, so we're in a situation there. But so we talked a bit about there
yeah,
what things go wrong. I think and I don't know if you've ever come across Will Guidara and his book Unreasonable Hospitality, but like this is it feels like it's getting into there, but obviously with more of a bigger lens in the sense that it's not about hospitality and you're actually talking to the people within organizations, not just like you say, the company values. You're sort of breaking down those barriers and those roadblocks. What has been one of your, I guess, best or heartfelt customer experiences that you go back to that you're like, that was good customer service. That just rocked my world.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, the best experience I ever had was just before COVID. Actually, it was on in Switzerland on Swiss rails. So I was lucky enough to be working with a company called Great Rail Journeys, and they run railway holidays across Europe. Oftentimes for older people, there's often kind of retired people that go and do these tours, but they're kind of 8, 9, 10 day railway tours around different parts of Europe and America. And I was lucky enough because we were working with them to go on the first 2 days of one of these 10 day tours to Switzerland. So we get on at St Pancras, get the Eurostar. We're going to go down to Geneva. We're going to change at Zurich, and then we're going to go on to our final destination. So all pile on the train. We get to Geneva, really straightforward. 30 of us all get on this Swiss rail train, sit down in our carriage, train pulls away, and about 10 minutes later, the train breaks down. And I was delighted actually because one of my colleagues was Swiss and she'd been telling me about how brilliantly efficient Swiss rail was. So I was straight on WhatsApp, texting her like typical Swiss inefficiency. I was really in my element. But then something really strange happened. About 5 minutes after we broke down, the train manager comes along and comes and says to us, look, I'm really sorry. I know you're a big group traveling through our country and that you've got a connection to make. The train's broken down. We don't know what's wrong with it yet. It might affect your onward connection. As soon as I know what's going on, I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you exactly what's happened and how it's going to impact you. But again, for now, please accept my apologies. And he goes back off down the train. 2 minutes later, we get a phone call from the head of operations at Swiss Rail. Hey, I
Whoa.
know you're a big group traveling through our country. I know the train's broken down. You've got a connection to make. I'm really sorry about that. Your train manager is going to look after you. But if you need anything at all, here's my direct number. Just give me a call. We'll help you work out where you need to go next. So about 10 minutes after that, the train starts moving again. And true to his word, the train manager comes back down and sits down with us and he says, right, this is what the problem was. This is how we fixed it. There's not going to be any more problems between now and Zurich, but you are going to miss your connection. And I'm really sorry about that. This is the next train you need to get. This is the platform it's going to go from. But it's quite a big, complicated station and there's a big group of you. So I'm going to have a member of platform staff meet you on the platform at Zurich, walk you over to where your new train is going to be. Again, please accept my apologies. Put into Zurich station, door opens, true to his word, right there at our door is a member of platform staff with an umbrella. We all follow around from platform 1 to platform 14, where the new train's waiting for us. They've already got a carriage reserved for us on the new train because we have one reserved on the old train. And as we get on, they gave us tea and coffee vouchers to apologise for the inconvenience. Now, we ended up getting into our final destination about 25 minutes late. And Tim, I'm a regular commuter into London every single day. And if my train into London gets in 25 minutes late on a Monday morning, I'm high-fiving the other commuters. Like I'm hugging, like I don't know what to do with all the extra time I've got in my day that I haven't planned for. Like that's a good day. And
Yes.
and the difference to me is one of ambition, really. I know
Mm.
there's infrastructure changes in different parts of the world and Swiss Rail have a nationalised railway, but real ambition, that something had gone wrong. They'd made a promise to us that they were going to get us to that destination at a certain time, and they weren't going to be able to keep that promise. So they did everything in their power to help us get to that destination, in as easy and effortless way as possible. And that to me was the best experience I ever had because it showcased everything I think is true about great customer experience, creating that certainty, taking
Mm.
ownership, being really proactive, being flexible in the situation, but understanding the humans in that situation, how we might be feeling, rather than just saying, well, that's tough. So yeah, that's the best experience I've ever had so far. So far.
Wow, that's massive. Swiss Rail. Go Swiss Rail. That yeah, it speaks to all
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
pillars, but in a way it's excellent, but it's excellently human. Like so the
Mm,
leader is able to be like authentic in the way that they spell things out within the context of the brand or the company, but they get to be them, right? They get that flexibility. Wow, that's
yeah, yeah,
really brilliant. Um, so
yeah, 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 yeah.
What motivated you to write the book? And obviously, I want to come into the human experience here. But what motivated you? What got you started with the book?
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back. Everyone's got different stories, really, haven't they? For me, it goes back quite a few years. So, funny enough, the honest answer is when I was I've been at HBC a long time and started to feel it's a great company. I love working there, but started to feel like I probably wanted to do something else. And I thought, well, look, if I'm going to leave the bank, people are going to Google me if I apply for jobs elsewhere. So I should have something to Google. So I thought I'd start up a blog and start writing articles. And pretty soon I realized I loved writing. Like it had never been a part of my life before, but I really, really love writing. I love the process of it. I love the challenge of it. I love the kind of blank piece of paper and just having to come up with something, the way you wrestle your thoughts. And I started to realize, by then I become a consultant. It was making me a better consultant because when I was speaking to my clients, I had points of view. I'd thought through some of these things and I could send them things afterwards. So then I, got to kind of 2018, 2019. I thought, I really want to write a book. And I think I've got some good material here. But I couldn't just start to write a book because I didn't know what the hook was in a way. I needed that kind of theme. And is in traditional, well-worn style, I was in the shower one day thinking about nothing. And then suddenly this kind of thought came into my head, which was kind of human and humanity. And I thought, I think that's the thing I'm trying to say. Like the common theme in all my articles is about we just need to be more human. Like that's what the problem is at the moment. So that day I started writing the book. I kind of thought, well, I'm going to put this together. I can kind of got a lot of stories. I've got a lot of thoughts. My book is very story based. And then I really got into it and I loved it. I really love writing it. I loved, again, the challenge of it. I love the experience of it. I ended up writing it twice because I wrote the first version thinking, I can do this easily. And then realized there was kind of a much better version that I should probably do instead with the help of a kind of my publisher giving some helpful thoughts as well. So that was kind of where it came from, really. And now I have a newsletter that I write every couple of weeks called CX Stories. But I love the experience of writing it. But yeah, so there was a slow burn, a slow hunch, as Stephen Johnson would call it, and then a eureka moment, as Stephen Johnson would always also call it, that was the catalyst for actually getting going with the book.
That's truly exciting. Hopefully, you've inspired some people to put pen to paper and start getting their stories down and their experiences out there. Like in the book, you talk about a company called
Yeah.
AO and the story of make
Mm.
decisions that will make your mum proud. Can we chat about that and what that is?
Yeah. AI document. So one of the things with the book is I decided I should probably get some case studies in there. So it's not just my stories and my experiences. So went and studied a whole load of organizations that we believe are leading their industries and doing some really great things in creating that human experience. And a guy called John Roberts set up a company called AO.com many years ago at the start of the kind of internet boom. And it's a white goods retailer, so they sell and deliver and distribute fridges and freezers and and washing machines around the UK and Europe, I think, and Germany. Really brilliant human company. Like the CEO is a real kind of walkabout manager in his words, spends a lot of time on the front line, a lot of time with his team. And it was an interesting theme across all of the CEOs I interviewed, which was they couldn't understand why this was so hard. They were kind of didn't understand why organizations found it hard to create a good experience, or even why they thought customer experience wasn't important. They were often a bit flabbergasted by some of my questions. They were just like, well, obviously you want to spend time with your customers. Like, what on earth are you doing that's more important? And when they say it like that, you realize how right they are. But John has a very empowered team. AO is a really empowered team, and that's one of the things I saw across all of these organisations: real freedom in their front line to make things better for customers. And when I was asking him about what his customer experience strategy was, again he looked at me slightly perplexed and said, "Well, you don't really need a customer experience strategy. Like it's not something that you need in a lot of detail. What you just need is people that really care and have the ability to go and do it." So their customer experience strategy, in as many words, is just they've just got two rules, which is treat every customer how you'd want your grand to be treated, and make decisions that would make your mums proud. And that's it. They're the only two rules they give to their frontline teams. Treat everyone like you want your grand to be treated, make decisions that would make your mums proud. And what I love about that is you get it. You instantly get it. Like you feel it. You'll know it now. Anyone listening will know what that feels like. You'll know what that experience would be like if you were delivering those two things. And he said, if you've got that, You don't need anything else. You don't need to tell people these are the 4 or 5 things you need to deliver, etc., etc.
Mm.
You just need to go out, be yourself, but have these parameters, and they end up having a really fantastic experience as a result.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I love that. And be yourself, something you said there, because I feel like we are programmed like over time, or depending on which culture you live in, which society you're with, you get programmed by the organization, but also by the culture and what's okay. Like I remember I'm obviously based in Singapore, but like I was going up an escalator. It rains a lot in Singapore, as you know, and
Yeah,
I had an umbrella. It's from Raffles Hotel. It's a lovely umbrella, but I tend to not use them that much. Anyway, I came up this escalator and I slipped on this metal grid and broke the umbrella, fell onto my back. And as I looked up, I saw the woman rising out of the reception, like, but not to greet me to say, "Are you okay, sir? That looked like a nasty fall. I hope, can I help you?" But to say, "Oh, that's not our fault. Oh, it's the rain, not our fault." The thing you should be saying right now is, "Are you okay?" Not
yeah,
thinking about
yeah.
insurance or complaints. Like, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is
It's
crazy that
incredible.
that's like how much
Yeah,
or how much work do you do, or how much work do you do on like breaking through the cultural aspects of the culture of the place, and then the
yeah,
culture and the place with the jargon and the words and the because like in ad tech, right,
yeah,
marketing, we've got all these words, but outside of that world, people don't know what the heck
yeah,
CPM is, or
yeah.
like any of these metrics are.
Yeah. It's exactly. We do quite a lot of that, really. We do quite a lot of work with organizations on what we call seeing the world from the outside in. So trying to escape this kind of natural inbuilt belief. So my business partner, Charlie Dawson, wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Customer Copernicus, which is all about, from a leadership perspective, how this culture ends up kind of taking hold and how you need to break out of it. And it is, it's that kind of inbuilt, you're surrounded by it every day. You're closer to your colleagues, your business, your regulator, your competitors than you are to your customers. They're really big and important, and they're there, but there's all these layers that get in the way every single day, and it build these inbuilt beliefs in. We did some big training program with one of the big banks recently on empathy training for their
Mm,
entire frontline team. And what we did as part of that was we just tried to make it really visceral. There were two big things that we did that had the biggest impact. The first was really just building up their own awareness. So playing them lots of their own calls and lots of their own experiences and getting them to go and listen to their own calls. So this was a contact center, and we realized that none of them had ever listened to their own calls. And then that's exacerbated when you look culturally, because none of the leaders has ever really listened to their own calls. They get some hand-picked ones that are normally complaints, but they're not just generally listening to kind of what's going on. So that was the first thing, and that's really impactful. We talked about earlier this kind of exposure to what's really going on. But the second thing that we did was we tried to reframe the perspective of this. Try and get them to think about other industries, other organizations, what it might look like in a different place. So we created a whole load of videos with some actors of, imagine if this conversation was happening in the pub or at the train station or in a cafe. And the change in that context highlights just how ridiculous it is. So we had a video of these two people sat in a pub, friends just sat chatting in a pub, but with that kind of conversation you might have in a contact center. So one guy comes in and just kind of goes, hi, how you doing today? And the other guy kind of spills out his heart and kind of goes, oh, it's awful. My girlfriend's broke up with me. This. And the other person just goes, okay, did you see kind of Gogglebox on telly last night? No, what did you think of that? Like, just completely irrelevant in the way you get in contact centers all the time, where you as a customer say all this stuff, and then the person goes, okay, what's your date of birth? Like, to get you through to the next level of security. And in a contact center, you're like, oh, that's the process. But when you take it out and you go, if this is just two people having a normal conversation, look how weird that is. And all of them were like, oh God, like, oh yeah, you're right. So that shift in perspective, that's really, I think, the thing that can help people to start to see the reality of what's going on.
massive. I love that. Penny drop moments all over the place. I don't.
Yeah.
I was at Super AI a couple of weeks ago at the conference, just seeing the innovation that's coming, and obviously with a deep kind of lens on sales and thinking about technologies like Gong, and they're doing the recording, like what you just said there about they don't ever listen to their calls. Like, do you feel like with the advancements in AI, that's going to help in any way to create yes, efficiencies and productivity in people, but is it going to help with this empathy thing, or is it actually going to hinder it? Or like, how can we at least leverage it? Like, how can we use it, if
Yeah.
at all, to be able to benefit the empathy side of things, to grow that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be used brilliantly and it could be used terribly, much like 20 years ago. Social media. Could it be? Could it be? And it ended up being both. And so the best version is that AI is used to support the humans to create more time for them to have better conversations. That's the best, and there's some good evidence behind this. Actually, if you've got a really, really skilled agent in a contact center, they don't really get much benefit from AI. If you have someone that's brand new, they get a lot of benefit from having a kind of AI assistant there helping them work out the right answers to things. So overall, it gives more time and space for them to think and have a natural conversation. Because the real challenge in those contact center conversations is distraction. It's the agent being distracted, thinking about what the answer is rather than really, really listening.
Mm.
Um, However, I also saw this week, and you might have seen this about SoftBank, and SoftBank are using an AI to change the tone in which a customer's speaking. So if a customer is really angry on the phone, to protect the contact center agent from feeling like they're being abused, this AI is going to kind of reduce the tone, instantly reduce the tone of the way the customer is speaking. So the agent feels like they can just have a normal conversation, like they're not reacting. And that for me is unbelievably dangerous for a number of reasons. Firstly, I think someone who sounds really angry, but their voice is kind of slowed down and calm, probably sounds more disturbing than if they're angry. Kind of got a sense of psychopathic behavior to it. So I'm not sure that's gonna help. But the second thing is, how are you going to react in the right emotional way if you think the customer's calm and actually they're angry? So that's really not good. But of course, the third thing and the biggest thing is, why don't we use the AI to make the experience better so that the customer isn't angry in the first place, rather than just trying to use the technology to kind of dissipate their anger? Like it's completely the wrong way around. And it comes from a good place. I understand why SoftBank are doing this, because there's a huge rise in abuse of frontline staff, which is unacceptable. So I understand why they're doing it, but it's the wrong way around of looking at it. So the answer to your question is, it will end up being both. We're going to see some amazing AI that's going to help improve the customer experience, vastly improve chatbots, help agents that are speaking to customers. People will still want to talk to people. That's still going to be there. But it could also be used in a really dangerous way, in the way that chatbots, as they currently are in the last 10 years, have massively destroyed the customer experience, because organizations have rushed to them quickly, seen them as a cost saving thing. This is really going to help. Everyone knows they're rubbish. Everyone knows they're rubbish. They're just really infuriating. They get in the way. They stop you speaking to people, makes the whole experience worse, and makes customers angrier as well. So got to make your choice of which one you want to be and how you want to use it. Sadly, both will be used, and that's going to be kind of a challenge. But the opportunity is there to massively improve the experiences using the tools in the right way.
Well, that's it, right? Like, even when you call up and they've got those automated, like, you have to say the things and you just shout at it because it doesn't understand. Oh, sorry, I didn't get what you said. You're like, yeah, I know, because you're not real. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Is this just a phase that, like, we pass through, and then the best of the best lead the way, and then it shifts like a rising tide lifts all boats? Or is it just like efficiencies rule, functions, features, like, doesn't matter, cost cut?
yeah. I mean, in a way, like history repeats, right? I mean, a lot of the issues we're talking about aren't new. There's always been organisations that have given a worse service but priced lower and just tried to make their money that way. And there's
Mm.
always been organisations that have had the best service. Now, our belief is, to get long-term sustainable growth, you need to give a great customer experience, because it's that kind of long-term sustainable growth that is what brings people to you over a long period of time. So you look at the likes of Amazon, like, they're giving incredible customer service, Apple, etc., etc. There's organizations though that burn bright for a while and then disappear, and they make a lot of money, but over time they can't sustain it. That's why the likes of Woolworths and Blockbuster and Kodak and others disappear, because they try to do it one way and it works for a bit, and then something else more useful comes along. So I
Mm.
think what we are going to see is this kind of human premium. So over the next few years, the company that give a really great human experience are going to be seen as the companies that give the best customer experience. But it might be that you're paying a bit of a premium for that. There will be some low cost options, which are like Ryanair in the UK aviation world, which is like, do you know what? You're not going to get as good a service from us. Just going to be honest about that. But we're going to be really cheap, and there'll be a market for that. there'll be customers for that. And that's really the crux of it, like, Tim, and everyone knows. But, you don't have to be all things to all people as an organization. You need to pick which customers you see the opportunity in and design your proposition around those. And for some of those customer groups, they'll be quite happy with a worse service, but what they believe to be a cheaper service. And then a business might do that for a few years before it stops or before it has to change its strategy. So, both have always been true, and both will continue to be true. There will always be those options, and then it's up to customers to make their choices of where they want to put their money.
Brilliant. What's been your worst experience ever, customer wise?
Oh, my worst experience. Well, let me tell you, this is my last story. Then my worst experience was when I this yellow chair. So a few years ago, I moved house and decided I wanted to buy one of those really big, comfortable reading chairs. Temporarily forgetting I had two children, so the chances of me sitting and reading in it were pretty slim. But it's good to have dreams, isn't it? And drove to a shop one morning, and I was in luck. They had a half price ex display furniture sale, and I saw this big yellow chair, and it was about £300 off. And I thought, that's the one I'm going to get. Only problem was I'd driven there in quite a small car with my wife and my son, so not a lot of room to get a big chair in. So I went to the sales advisor and I said, look, can I get it delivered? He said, no, we don't do delivery on ex-display furniture. You have to get it home yourself. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. So I said to him, look, can I take the chair out to the car, see if I can fit it in? If I can, I'll buy it. If not, bring it back in. And he goes upstairs and he asks his manager. He comes back down and says, no, you can only take the chair off the premises once you've paid for it. So I thought about it and I said, okay, well, can I buy the chair, take it out to the car, try and get it in? If I can, I'll buy it. If not, bring it back in, get a refund. And he goes upstairs and he asks the manager and he comes back down and he says, no refunds on ex-display furniture products. I thought, okay, so I thought about it and I said, okay, well, what if I buy the chair, leave it here for an hour while I drive my wife and son home, come back, pick it up in an hour? And he went upstairs and he asked his manager, and he comes back down. He says, no, once you've bought the chair, you have to take it off the premises immediately. I was like, I feel like I'm in one of those chicken, fox, bag of grain across the river puzzles. Like there's an answer in here somewhere and I don't know what it is. So I think, well, what if I leave my wife and son here for an hour? And he was all right with that. Actually, he was fine with that. So
Of course he was, yeah.
that was what we did. But yeah, but this
Oh
guy
my
was
goodness.
21, big and muscly, everything I'm not. And I said, look, can you at least help me carry the chair out to the car that's in your car park just outside the door? And he's like, yeah, I can do that, no problem. So we pick up the chair, and as we're halfway across, he says, oh, just so you know, I can only carry it as far as the door, because after that, it's your chair, and I'm not insured if anything would happen to it. So true to his word, we get to the door, he puts down the chair, and he stands back and watches me and my wife, who's 4'10" 3/4, struggle to carry this chair to the car in the car park while my son's playing chicken with all the other cars driving around. It's the most ridiculous experience I've ever had. It's ridiculous. All your listeners will know that it's ridiculous. But yet it's happening in every organization around the world right now. Someone's making some decisions that just don't make sense because they're scared of the processes or procedures. They're kind of tied in. They're looking at the world too inside out to make those decisions, just like your person in the hotel lobby when you've fallen over. So the chair is great, but that's the worst experience I've ever had. Only benefited from, I've told the story so many times that I feel I've got back any problem. I've built back the emotional reserves from any problems I had with it. But it's a terrible, terrible experience. But it is happening right now.
My goodness, John, that is a story and a half. Like it just goes to show, and I think this conversation has been amazing, just at showing how important that emotional experience is. So thank you for talking through that. Why automated procedures and strict processes can kind of bind us to something that we're not, and we need to get back and bring humanity into those conversations again. So thank you so much for being here, John. It's been amazing.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
You really will have touched a lot of people and served people with your work. If people want to get involved with you, if they want to follow you, how can they get in touch? What should they do next?
Yeah, I'd love people to kind of get in touch and connect. So LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. That's John J. Sills at LinkedIn. I've got a newsletter and an Instagram account. They're both CX stories. You can find that on LinkedIn as well. And professionally, a foundation. So we're at the-foundation.com. We're London-based, but globally working customer-led growth consultancy and work with businesses all around the world of all shapes and sizes. So you can find me pretty much everywhere if you Google John J. Sills, then I've got various social network bits will pop up. And of course, the book, The Human Experience, I should mention, which if people want to read that, then I'd love to hear what people think.
They definitely should. I love it. This is only going to get more important. So thank you very much. And that's a wrap. Thank you for sharing and rating this show. It helps us reach more people and spread the message. That message is the believe it is possible message. I want you to believe in you, believe in the situation, and believe in your bigger life. That's why I created the School of Success. It's a selection of short courses that can help boost your skill acquisition in negotiation, sales, and self-transformation. This is where it's at, and I want you to win. I want you to build your empire, the empire of you, and become more. So if you're looking to know how to deal with difficult people, to negotiate at an expert level, to sell, and to become more yourself, to develop your mindset, your confidence, to be able to then think about how to elevate your business, this might be for you. So head on over to the School of Success and look at the links in the show notes and get on over there and check out the short courses that we have for you.